Hey, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. And welcome to What's the Chew? We are live, everybody. We are live. Now, y'all gonna bear with me today because I'm on a different device than usual, but still the same great service, same great experience. Come on and join us. Start your watch parties. You are joining this intergenerational dialogue, and we are so excited to be back with you. We are vibing out to Black Girl Soldier by Jamila Woods. Come on, y'all. How was everybody's weekend? How was everybody's Juneteenth extended celebration? That's what we're calling the 4th now. It's not Independence Day to us. It is a cookout day and the extended Juneteenth celebration. Come on in, everybody. We are so excited to be here with you today. We don't own the rights to this music, but again, we are listening to Black Girl Soldier by Jamila Woods. This conversation you do not want to miss. We are back with an amazing another topic as it relates to our mental health, especially for us as Black women. We have been stretched, we have been stressed, we have been pulled and pushed in more directions than we care to be. And I think we a lot of bit fed up. And so we're not here just to push the envelope. We are here to create an opportunity for you to share your own experiences too, and just a little bit about what we've been through. So now with that, let me bring on my co-moderator, the woman of the hour herself. She is my fairy godmother, the blessing that she has been to this village, this community, and even just exposing us to these opportunities to chew on a few things. Everybody say hey to Patricia Green Rogers.
Hi, everybody. Good to have you here. And as Alexia said, we have a very interesting topic that I think is going to resonate with all of you. I think all of you would have experienced some of the issues that we're going to bring from this topic. So please, please, please join in. Let's do some knowledge sharing today.
You know, as I was thinking about this topic that we're covering today, when you brought up so many different points, even from your own childhood, your own experience, and just how it really shaped who you are today, I can't help but think about this current generation, especially the alpha generation, the generation now who have not yet hit adulthood, but are very passionate about their own experiences. And so many times people will put them down and just be like, oh, well, they don't know anything. You haven't been through anything. But I would say, and I want to get your opinion on it before we bring the rest of our guests on with us, I would say they do have some experiences that they can be vocal about. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and particularly for me, coming out of an era of segregation, but having these kinds of mentors through our institutions in the Black community at that time, as well as our school systems, which were segregated, I got a lot that gave me a sense of who I was through those people who ran those kinds of institutions.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I'm looking at the young people today, I mean, the legislation has changed, even if the actions have not changed in the minds and hearts of people. That is to say, they know that they have a right to certain kinds of entitlements. They know that they should be treated the same as individuals from other ethnic groups. And they are not going to be silent. We know that. We see that when the young people had the march in Washington and it was multicultural. We see the fire in them. And I say we need to support them. We need to support them and get them in positions where they can be the change at the policy level as well as community levels.
You hit on so many amazing things. And again, I think that's why our conversation and our dialogue that births from What's the Chew is so important. So for those of you who are just tuning in, I am Alexia, one of your moderators for today, and I am here with our beautiful fairy godmother, Patricia Green Rogers. She is a historian. She is literally creating legacy as we speak. And so what's the chew, you ask? It's your first time here, so we'll let it slide. But by next week, we're gonna give you a pop quiz, and we're gonna be ready for you to answer. But CHEW stands for Culture, Health, Education, and Wealth. And this is an intergenerational dialogue, which is why, as Patricia just said, it is so important for us to create a space for all generations, not just who we think should be able to come to the party. This party is for all of us, especially us as Black women who are out here feeling like we don't have a space that we can operate in, a safe space. We are going to talk very heavily about what it means to have a safe space. We're going to talk very candidly about what it means to protect Black women. And we're going to talk very deeply around social isolation. So with that, let's go ahead and bring on our amazing guest that we have on for today. Everybody say hello to Coach Robin. Say hello to L, and say hello to T. Pearson. Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's up, ladies? How's it going?
Hello.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you.
We missed y'all. It was a little weird having a week off. I don't know.
I know, right? I was like, I'm supposed to be doing something at 4 o'clock.
Right. You be like,
and then I was like, what? Oh, it's canceled.
We were celebrating extended Juneteenth.
We were celebrating extended Juneteenth, right?
Because I wasn't gonna say nothing about that. And
extended Juneteenth. It's extended Juneteenth. Exactly. So, ladies, so excited to be here with you today. And our conversation is one that we have individually had very deep conversations about, right? We've talked about it very deeply. So we thought it good to bring this subject to our second piece of our health conversation, right? Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, I do have like a little current event that I got to get your feedback on. All right. So C.H.E.W. Okay. We got to talk about C.H.E.W. Richardson, right?
I'm ready.
And so, well, first, she is all things Black girl excellence, right? That's number one. But I need y'all to sound off for me, and I see Coach Robin got her thinking she already like what you. Don't worry. I need y'all to sound off on two things. Just sound off on 2 points quickly. What are your thoughts about the suspension before it was, known that she would be able to run? What are your thoughts on her in her position and the community of Olympic athletes and the people who have created that environment? Because there's a lot of things that's going around. So I don't want to feed you anything. I want you to be very intentional. I know I got my own thoughts. I'm sure Patricia has hers, but I want to know, what are your 2 points on, one, the act, right? Okay. She smoked the weed. She said it. She admitted to it. She smoked it. And then the backlash that she received. But then also she did receive some support. And we posted about it on CocoLife.Black. Mm-hmm. So Coach Robin, you go first. Sound off. What are your thoughts? As coming from this community, what are your thoughts?
So my first thought, the first thing when I heard about it, was, who are her people? Where are her people? Who is guiding her, leading her? Where are her folks? She needs a community of people, whoever. So let's say this. Clearly she has track coaches, right? Apparently they are not taking care of her. So she needs folks around her that are going to take care of her in all aspects of her life. It can't just be about the sport. She's a young woman. She's 21, right? She needs, there needs to be somebody leading, guiding, caring for her. And this whole event shows that doesn't exist for her. Because whether or not we want to argue about the control, whether weed is a enhancing substance,
A
right?
mood enhancing drug.
Thank you. And it's certainly not performance enhancing,
Correct.
but you knew it was on the list of
Mm-hmm.
things you weren't supposed to do. If she had people that were caring for her, I think she would have been protected and not in this situation.
Can I interject a question, please? I know it's not my turn, but I wanted to just ask because I don't remember, because I know she was very upset in learning about her mom. Does anyone know if there was a relationship that she had with her mom? Because sometimes if something like that happens and you don't have a good relationship with your mom, you have a lot of sorrow for what you could have done.
Mhm.
But I think even aside from that, though, Mom Patricia, I think even what Coach Robin was saying, of like the people around her and the support and all of that stuff, I think it depends on your culture and what hood you came from. Because when it comes to marijuana or weed, as we call it in the hood, that could have been them helping take care of her, right?
I
Because
see.
she was depressed from her mom and all of that stuff. And so in their eyes, that may have been them just trying to help their homegirl out without knowing the specifics of like, because if I think like basic, uh this is just my homegirl, right? So this is my homegirl that done made it. She done ran, she done won, she going to the Olympics, and so now we're gonna turn up. And so part of that turn up may be weed, it may be alcohol. Not to say it's right. I ain't saying she was right. And as a
But what
I'm a
Robin is
420
saying,
follower.
Robin was saying, where were her coaches?
But see,
Where,
the coaches may have already been gone for the day. You see what I'm saying? She could have been out celebrating with her friends.
gotcha.
And so the greatest thing is that she's going to have to know where her journey is taking her and knowing that some of these people can't go because they may not be able to give her the best advice for moving forward.
That's true. That's a
So,
good
an
point.
answer, I just want to answer your question too, Patricia. Two things. Yes, she did have a positive relationship with her mother as it relates to her experience. Now, the piece is though, she found out about her mother passing
Very
live.
yeah,
Like she was told this information while being interviewed.
Yeah.
right.
And so that enough in and of itself is traumatic. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to get your feedback, because there are many moving pieces to it, but we see this happen so often with young Black athletes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen with young white athletes, but one thing about
Michael
it,
Phelps.
and,
Michael Phelps.
right, but one thing about it, like Coach Robin brought up, is people will protect their own, right?
Mhm.
And so that's where I think our even if it is her friends, like somebody had to recognize the gem that she now is, not for us, not just in our community, for herself, right? Because sometimes we'll put people on these pedestals and give them this responsibility that they can't handle this pressure. So
Yeah.
not that, but for herself.
And
Um,
if she had people, they would have stopped that interview right then and there
Yeah.
they'd have been like, oh,
Yeah.
and been covering her
Yeah.
from that moment on.
Over. Yeah.
It's still not the right support.
Oh, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that on that. I definitely do.
so L, from and then T, from your perspective, L, like understanding the trauma that comes with hearing this life altering news. What are your thoughts on Sha'Carri and what transpired, and as a community, of people, like where did we fail her?
I think when you suffer trauma like that, even when there are people around you, it doesn't matter. So it's one of those things where it's like, depending on where she was mentally and emotionally, she needed an escape. And I'm not justifying what she did, but I'm saying, like, depending on where she was mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those things, in the moment she just needed an escape. And she didn't care that she was who she is. She's just like, this is happening to me, I need an escape. So that's where she was coming from in that moment. In terms of support and stuff like that, yes, you definitely need a village. You need a village that understands that right now we know you need an escape. We know that you need to kind of deal with all these different emotions, and this is how we can do it in a positive way. But again, if she doesn't have that, then she wouldn't. What is she gonna do? She's gonna rely on what she's used to. So she's from a certain hood. If she's used to releasing stress in a particular type of way, she's going to kind of revert back to those coping mechanisms that she used in the past. And so I am happy with the amount of support that I've seen, though, like just on social media, everybody like just rallying with her and, just kind of supporting her on the back end. I feel like, it's a really good place and it's great. But I think from here, she has to, hopefully she can get a village of people who stand with her and who are going to help her through this journey, because that's really what you need. You need a good village of people to help you through the journey.
Period.
Good point. Good point. And T, from your perspective, also Sha'Carri, you, especially because I remember you still do, but I remember the season when you were working very closely in your nonprofit work with young people.
Yeah.
And so what did you see? What did you identify? What happened through your lens as it related to Sha'Carri? What was that like? What did that look like?
Man, I got a couple different views. My first view is like what Coach Robin and Elle was saying, right, about the support in the village. And so it's like one of those things, and we see it with our athletes all the time. They come from the hood and don't have the right people around them, so they end up in debt. They end up, in all of these suspensions for drugs, for alcohol, domestic violence. Like they end up in
Vick, remember the Michael Vick
right,
situation?
Because Michael Vick was born and trained and raised around fighting dogs. Right. So he didn't know that it was necessarily wrong until he got in the spotlight. And then it's like, oh, that was wrong. Same thing with weed. You know what I'm saying? Weed's been around and it's been a coping mechanism for a lot of folks for years. Now we got the medical marijuana side. But it's been like a cultural conversation piece, kind of like kicking it with your friends and having a beer, or sitting with your ladies and drinking some wine. For the people that are connoisseurs of medical marijuana or cannabis or whatever you want to call it, this is a social thing. And so that's what I was saying earlier. Like when she went through that loss, she won. What we know is that weed don't make you run faster. Okay. And so she didn't smoke it before she got out there because she would have lost. That's just the reality, because we don't do too fast movement when we under the influence of marijuana. That's just facts, right? Don't nobody speed. Don't nobody get caught running from the police. That's too much movement. Ain't nobody doing all that.
Can I just add in real quick too? One of the scholars that I've been working with since we started said, as a matter of fact,
she helped
she deserve another medal if she won the whole race. If she is the fastest woman in the world, young, in her age group in the world. And if that is her norm, but I digress. I'm not.
And she smoked afterwards. And so like, I kind of feel a certain way about the Olympics, but then the other side of it is like, she still should have been able to run because Michael Phelps he was able to swim, but I'm going to leave that one. I'm going to leave that one alone. But for her, I feel like it's a job. It's also a job. And she knew what the job application was. She knew what the requirement was for that job. It's no different than folks with a federal job now. You still can't smoke weed, because you got a federal job and your federal is not approved. And so she knew that it was a job, and she knew that at some point that they were going to test her. She should have knew more if her support was around her, because now you this black woman that done broke these records and the spotlight is on you. And so now they're going to definitely make sure they test you on for everything, because they need to make sure that that was your brute strength and not some additives, right? So then when they tested it, oh, she had weed in her system. They can't say it made her run faster, because it don't. So now it's like you broke a policy, which is true. Because if you smoke weed and you do a urine on your job, like Jerome, Southwest, they do random urines. He get caught dirty urine. Guess what? That's his job. He's going to have to deal with whatever goes on, with that part. And same with many people. And so she just has to deal with that consequence, but also hopefully it's a learning lesson that this is your job and this is what you committed to. And these are the things you're not going to be able to do, no matter how you feel about it, no matter how you feel like it's just weed, you can't do it. And so I think that that's what the support was, right? From our community of like, sis, we all done messed up before. But let's take this as a learning lesson. Let's move forward, but also let's make sure that you got the supports and the resources and the people around you to not make this mistake again.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, what you're saying, I was thinking of the community and what you've all of you have said. If she had this village that she thought she could turn to, or even if she was thinking that she's young, she's a kid, then maybe it could have been a different kind of reality. But I think that's part of what we're going to delve in today. Very often we feel isolated when trauma hits us. Do we think, where do I turn? Or do we get fixated on the trauma and get
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those of you who are just tuning in, you are here catching up on episode 6 of What's the Chew. This is an intergenerational call and response dialogue, and we are centering it around the experiences of us as Black women as we share our own history, current events, and just subjects around culture, health, education, and wealth. This week, we are continuing our dialogue around health. We were just talking about, if you're just tuning in and you got some thoughts on it, we were just talking about the whole scenario with Sha'Carri Richardson, and how the consensus is that, you know, she is young. Yes, we understand. But this is why community, why village is so important. Number one, this is why it is so important to also have some systems in place to help you as you navigate trauma from a mental health perspective. And this is also why we have got to not only just make this be a hype notion as it relates to protecting Black women, but it has to be a reality, right? It has to be a reality that we are not just kind of left out there unsupported. You know, she's an athlete. She cannot just be treated like this racehorse you can pick up and put down whenever you feel like it, and not give her the support that she needs. And then equally, as she's maturing through this, she has to also learn that there's going to be some people, like they say, everybody can't go where you're going. There's going to be some people that you got to let go. So with that, I think let's just kind of continue diving on in for maybe like the next 15 or so minutes. We got to talk about social isolation. The reason why I said that I thought that this would be a nice little kind of current event to hit on as it related to the whole situation is because we experience that so often. So let's just think back. Let's get in a time machine for a quick second and just go back 365 days from today. This time last year, we were quarantined. We didn't know how long we were going to be in this situation. In our community, we are experiencing an increase of numbers as it related to deaths as a result of the COVID-19 virus disease. We were also battling our emotional trauma from Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and a host of other names that we didn't even get a chance to see happen, but we know that they happen because we know how we're targeted. And then we're left with also having to navigate all of this while parenting, while helping kids navigate school, and all these other components that are coming into place. So the question really is that we're talking about, and that I want to get your feedback on. And Patricia, you and I were speaking very candidly on the inequalities that we face. And from a mental health perspective, how that really kind of plays on us. T, you and I had a conversation probably about a week or two ago. It feels like forever ago, but we were talking about addiction. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the inequalities as it relates to prescription drugs and opioids, and how our community was treated very differently during the crack epidemic than our white counterparts are treated as it relates to opioids. So for you, what does this look like for you? Your own experience, your own lens coming out of the DMV area, for everything that you've been through, and absolutely feel free to kind of give a little brief background about it. But what does it look like for you, these inequalities and the social injustices that you face as a Black woman every day?
Wow. How much time we got? Like, because it's so many, right? And I think even with myself, I can put myself in so many different boxes, right? Because I'm a Black woman and I am a disabled vet. I'm a Black woman with locks. I'm a Black woman whose BMI is a little fluffy. You know what I'm saying? And so like I fit in all of these different criterias, but at the end of it all, I'm still a Black woman. And I have a head upstairs that I got from one of the guys that makes all my stuff for the love, and it says protect Black women. And I started to wear it today on the show, but it also got 2 guns, and so I was like, I didn't want to get shut down. You know, they YouTube and Facebook be pressed,
right?
But the message was to protect Black women, and I'm glad that you asked that, because I can tell you that I have often felt slighted because of all of my different boxes, all my different check boxes. But more so recently, I have not felt protected as a Black woman. Not by law enforcement, not by the court, not by um, Black men. I'll throw that out into the ring as well, right? But it's also due to Black male ego and expectations, and I could throw a whole bunch of other stuff on there. But let me just back up and say, because y'all know I'm transparent, so let me just go ahead and get it. So I was gonna sugarcoat around this, but I can't do it. So in true T form, I'm gonna be transparent. So basically, long story short, someone threatened to kill me, as well as 9 other people last Saturday. As a result, I have technically kind of been in hiding, as well as a couple of other folks. And we have restraining orders. And for those that follow me know, I done had on a whole dress and everything last week, going back and forth to court to kind of fight um this foolishness. But as a result of the foolishness, I can tell you that as a certified trainer for domestic violence and technically an expert in that field as well, I have not felt protected. I have not felt protected by law enforcement, who, one, the initial officer was a young Black guy. And even with me telling him what he should have done, that could have maybe helped save our life just a little bit, he chose to not do it and basically told me that it didn't meet the criteria for which he was doing. So then I had to let him know that it did, because I'm a certified trainer and I know for certain that it meets the criteria, but his ego would not allow him to do so. So as a result, 10 of us, 8 adults and 2 children, lives was in danger because this man stormed the house. And had he had his gun that he thought he had, I wouldn't be here to talk to you. And that's just how serious it's been. And even with talking to the police department about my complaints and the other victims' complaints, it has not been taken seriously. This same man showed up to a resident that he has a restraining order against and used the police as his representative and as his escort to remove property that he didn't need, nor that we could say that was technically his. But the officer on the phone told me, a young white guy, told me, well, seems like you would just want him to get his stuff so that y'all can go on with your lives. Seems like y'all would just want him out of your way, and he's coming to get his stuff so that you don't have to deal with it anymore. That's what my friend husband police was saying. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, he threatened to shoot all of us. He threatened to shoot the whole house up. How is this allowable? But the lack of empathy that the officer gave let me know that you don't give a damn about these Black lives that's hanging in the balance. And that alone lets us know why DV is underreported for what we know. Those that are reported, a lot of the victims drop the charges because they feel re-victimized. Some of the comments that was made to my friend who is the wife shouldn't have been said to a victim at all. Completely inconsiderate, completely unempathetic, but completely enough that had she not have a village around her pushing to continue, she may have gave in and went back, because that's what happens, and we know that, right? But then no one pays attention until it's a funeral.
Well, the laws against domestic violence are there.
Yeah,
Probable cause,
yeah,
sexual
mom. But the
assault.
thing is, you got to
And
get to that. But
I know
what
it.
we know
And
is that the police ain't here, and we know restraining
right.
orders is
But
a
I'm
piece of paper.
saying during the early stages, because I worked in the domestic
Yeah,
violence movement in the 70s, and during the early stages when those laws were put in place, we had active engagement with police. Most of the police were victims. I mean,
yeah,
were victimizing their wives.
yeah.
Some of the people who are the biggest domestic violence,
They wear the badge.
oh my God, the perpetrators,
Yeah,
they are people who are giving us health care, the
yeah,
doctors, the
yeah,
police. The
yeah,
stats were showing that at that time.
yeah. And it
And
still
so,
does, mom.
oh, that's
It
sad.
still does.
But we were activists back then. I'm just
Yeah,
saying we were activists and advocates. And that it's a shame that today we still have to be that, but we do. And we need more African American women who are working in that movement. And we're not against Black men just because, of that. We're against being beat by Black men. We're against being verbally abused, if you will. And when you have a police department that is not fulfilling its duty, then you have a case against the police department. You just have to,
absolutely.
you
But we
just
got to
have
go
to
through it.
not put on that activist hat, make some noise, show up.
Oh, mom, you know I'm shaking branches, because the one thing's for certain, I may be goofy, but I know a little bit and know a lot, and know a lot of people. And so
Yeah.
we've been shaking trees. We've been
Because you
shaking
don't
trees.
even want to think of what would have happened if her village had not been there through you and her other friends.
Ma, even today, when she was trying to go pick up her prescription, you see what I'm saying? And he followed her and was able to corner her to the point where they made eye contact, and then he left. That's intimidation. You see what I'm saying? But calling the police would have done nothing, because they would have said, "Oh, he's in free passage. You out in public. You can't stop him from coming to the grocery store."
You
You know, all
filed a
of the things.
complaint, but you did file a complaint, right?
Oh, a whole bunch of them. A whole
Okay.
bunch of them, because it's a paper trail, right?
Hmm.
So even in the event, Lord forbid, something does happen to us, at least there's a paper trail of
Yeah.
failed training, of failed ability to protect. And so I think that even with that daily struggle, like, that's something that happens every day. But it just so happened that I got caught in the whirlwind of it as an expert, right? And so I kind of have a little more insight of what should have happened, what needs to happen, and what could happen, because there's been gaps in this training process.
Yes.
But as a Black woman, I don't feel protected right now. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, this is just another piece of the social isolation that trauma, like you were saying, Ma, puts on us. And it makes us not want to go out because depression. And now you don't feel safe to go out. So then you're trying to push yourself, because you ain't gonna take my life from me, and I'm gonna do me, and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But then the reality is, like, damn, every pickup that go past him, I gonna flinch because he has a pickup. And all his friends that he's been using as intimidators has pickups. And so, like, every time a pickup go, and it's like, okay, nah, that's not them.
Trauma.
Oh, and so, like, that's re-traumatizing, right?
So
To add it to everything else.
So I just want to as you're carrying that component of the conversation, also want to lift up something that you said as it relates to just the overall trauma that has been imparted upon everybody involved, right? And I think it's important that we identify that it's within our community that this is being experienced, right? So we go back to what we said about C.H.E.W, which is that this is why you need a village. And on top of that, you want to be knowledgeable about policies. So I'm going to take this brief moment to do a voting plug and say, as many times as we've seen people not show up to the ballot boxes in the booths because they're like, well, my vote doesn't matter. Or they're like, well, I vote in the primary, I vote for the president. You will see, as our pastor says very often at Enoch, you will see a judge and the police chief and the attorney general and all of those district attorney before you see the president.
But
So
that's not something they really teach us in school, man. That legislative window, you get that
that's
in
why
third
we're
grade.
lifting it up. That's why we're lifting it up right now. There's
Right.
we're lifting it up right now because that's the whole intentionality behind this conversation.
Yes.
Is to educate about health, wealth, in our culture and how it impacts us. So there's a video out right now. It's called We the People on Netflix. For all of y'all who like Netflix and chill, go watch it. It is definitely a 2021 play on Schoolhouse Rock. It's got some really great content in there to educate about our systems as it relates to just everything. So I saw Elle and Coach Robin, you nodding your head and in disbelief a lot of that has happened. And so as she was sharing her story about the trauma, about the social injustices and inequalities that she has experienced just over this past week. And so for you, let's pivot to Elle. For you, especially coming from some background like you have in the medical field, what has your personal experience been as it relates to this same topic, social injustices, inequalities, as a Black woman?
It's so many things that went through my mind as T was sharing. Just as a Black woman, and just going from a women's health perspective of when I was a nurse, and there was a particular occasion where a woman went into preterm labor due to an abruption, which happened because her and a man got into a fight. So her and the man, like, they got into a fight. He hit her belly. She went into labor. She was like 7 months pregnant, something like that. Like, baby was like super early. And just thinking of how certain things happen to us as black women, and there are so many different channels that you have to hit in order to kind of get what you need, that it's actually frustrating and exhausting. And for the person who is in the situation, I could see how things get very like something never comes of it, right? Because here you are, this woman who's endured whatever situation you've endured, and now you have to fight for yourself. And even if you have a village around you who, because the girl's sister-in-law was super involved, like doing all the things, calling the cops, doing the reports, trying to go back and forth with the lawyers, and even when you have that, it just becomes very exhausting that you have to do as much as you have to do. To the doctor, in the doctor's report, it even said that the child's birth was due to the trauma from the guy hitting her. And still, he's free. The baby's here. The baby's fine. But it's one of those things that the process for her was so long and arduous and exhausting. I find that a lot of times when us as Black women, when we're in situations where something has happened to us and we need to seek the law or seek protection or seek any type of justice or help, it becomes exhausting to the point where sometimes we're just like, you know something, I just need to move on. Like, I just need to move on. I need to continue with my life. This is a lot more added stress to me than I can even deal with right now. So let me just go this opposite way. So even when T said, like, the officer was like, it seems like you should just go ahead and let him do whatever he needs to do so that you can go on with your life. Unfortunately, a lot of times we do get to that point because we don't have the support that we need in law enforcement. Like, yeah, our village is here, but there are some things that our village can't do. Certain papers they can't sign, certain appointments, certain court dates, certain things our village just can't do for us that we have to do ourselves. So now we're traumatized. We're in these situations. We're fighting all these battles. And although we have a village, it's still so exhausting, and it almost feels like you're underwater. Like, it's just so much, and you just can't get to the top. You just can't. You're drowning in all the things that you have to do. And so yeah, it's a very tough place to be in. And I feel like if there was more support from the legal system to understand and kind of see us and hear us, because I feel like if it was a man in the same situation, they wouldn't face the same issues.
Well, no, and let me just add, because all of you are saying a lot, and I said the 1970s is actually early 80s. I worked for one of the first domestic violence shelters in the country, created by white women. So, if it's created by white women, it's for white women, and there are unique reasons to engage in addressing Black women's needs. But you need to have Black women on staff, if you will, to know the idiosyncrasies in our communities so that you can efficiently and effectively address the needs. There was one woman who came in. She was Black. She had 2 kids. Her husband had severely victimized her. Her daughter had terminal cancer, and he just rushed her to death by what she saw her mother being treated like. And it's stories like that that let me know the importance of Black women being on the front line, like you are, T, as advocates, and also making use of the media, drawing public attention. We have to create our own system by us, for us, with the example of what you just experienced last week. That's a model right there. And not rely on white systems to know how to efficiently and effectively help us. What you mentioned, Al, is all in place in terms of the legal system, but it doesn't always work for us just because we are us.
And you know what I felt to be funny? I want to lift up before we move on. I'm sorry. But her attorney told her when she goes to court or whatever, that they're going to work on her temperament. Because don't come off as the angry
stereotype.
Right. Don't come off as just angry, vindictive, and all of those things. And I was like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, would she have said that if she was white? Because angry means what? I'm an angry Black woman, but why can't I be angry that he threatened to kill me and my kids? Right. Why can't I show the court that emotion? Because I am angry as well as terrified and all of those other things. So, like, when she said that, I was like, it wouldn't have been the same advice if she was another color. But
because she wouldn't have needed that advice if she was another color, because she would have already had a certain level of support given, like already. And we talked about this, and Coach Robin, I need you to definitely weigh in, especially from the system of education,
right,
and having grappled with that yourself. But yeah, she would have needed it, because there's a certain level of privilege that comes with being a white woman, or any other woman but black, but especially for us. So you're right. They would not have said it to her. And some would say that they said it to her because they needed her to be aware of how she would be perceived.
yeah, exactly,
Absolutely.
exactly.
So that came off like
Instead
this.
of just as a victim, that should have been that should have been a lead, but everything else doesn't lead with that. So,
Nope.
Coach Robin, what you think?
So Coach Robin, from your weigh in.
Right.
So I'm gonna back up a little bit, because repeated social injustice, repeated inequalities against Black women severely damages our self-esteem, our self-confidence, our self-image, and makes us angry. Now, we have to figure out how we are going to build at least those self tags, the self-image, the self-confidence, and the self-esteem, how to build that in all of us, so that when and if, I'm not even going to say when, because I don't want to speak that over us, but should we wind up in some of these situations that we're talking about, we can help ourselves, which would ultimately not have us in some of it's about building who we are as women, so we don't right away need the police help. We don't right away need a whole village of folks to support us, because we are already who we need to be by ourselves. Now, that's going to take some time. I'm looking at y'all with young kids. Your job right now, because y'all all got girls, your job is to make sure that that girl child is fully aware of who she is and her power, that her confidence is strong, that she understands and believes and knows that she is beautiful, that she is knowledgeable, that she is capable, so that her self-esteem is high, so that her self-confidence is high, so her self-image is high, so they don't wind up in crazy situations. So those of you who are raising young girls, it's time to pivot hard to making sure that they understand their power, that they understand that this world that they're living in may see them a certain way, but they need to see themselves in the way that's going to keep them from winding up in some of this stuff that older women are dealing with, because they didn't get those lessons.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
I mean, the point, and please continue on too if you have anything personally that you can reflect on. You don't have to go deep into it, but just as it relates to injustices and inequalities, one of the things that you hit on about us raising Black young girls is exactly why too we need a village, because I'm just raising a Black girl. L's just raising a Black girl. T's just raising a Black girl. We need the other Black aunties and nanas and such like you and our fairy godmother to step in, and even those who aren't with us today, like LaFarn and Monica and all of these sisters who are pouring into us. Like, that's what is necessary, because I can honestly say I am being made aware of my power at 38 years old because of some of the experiences I've had with T, with L, and then with you, with both of you. I am still learning my power, and I'm 38 years old. So I think it's necessary, like you said, for us to have that space. So yes, we as parents need it, and then for the community who is listening,
Period.
y'all gotta you gotta have, because when I can't, you got to.
Yeah.
When I can't, you have to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it has to be a
Absolutely.
collective lift. You know, and I want to go back and lift up something that Mom Patricia was saying earlier about, you know, more of us need to be involved on the front lines and, you know, getting more of us into places of power and decision making. But those of us that make it to those places have to know the mission. We have to know the goal. We have to know that we were put there so that we can help us. And sometimes those that look like us in them positions don't understand the mission.
That's
And
right.
therefore the mission stops once they get that
Co-opted.
position.
Co-opted.
Corrected correctly. So, you know, that's my other challenge to go with everything that we've said today of like, you know, once you know better, you do better. Right. And so that's cliche. It's very cliche-ish, but that requires action, not just conversation, not just talking, but actual action. So yeah, I'm on the front lines. In the midst of all of this, I was on the protest lines. I was out there protesting, and I was made it very clear to my daughter and to my husband at the time that like I'm not one of those ones that's gonna stand by. I'm not gonna let any inequalities happen in front of me, and I'm just gonna record it and put it on Facebook. I'm very clear that if something happens in my presence, I will be a hashtag. But that's something that I've kind of modeled my life under and after, that I have to walk the change that I want. And so I can't sit here on Facebook and type about doing this and type about doing that, and then reality sitting on my couch doing nothing. So I think as we have these conversations, right, things to chew on, you know, that we have to be conscious to take what we know and do action behind it. And so even with the situation that I was talking about today, action has happened. I'm not sitting here just complaining. No, that emails were sent, phone calls was done, and we had meetings at the police department with captains, lieutenants, and everything else. Because I used to train law enforcement around this very tool that could have saved our lives. And so there has been action in place. I'm not going to stop with just what we're doing, right? Because it's still an ongoing situation. However, we have to be collective to know that our education has to go beyond us. And so once we know something, it's our obligation to share it. Otherwise, it dies with us. It's that thing like, you know, you got money and your money can't go with you. We say that your money can't go with you. So plan something to do with your money when you're not here. Otherwise, the state gonna take it. It's the same thing with our knowledge. If we die without knowledge and we don't pass it on, the death gonna take it. And it's going to die out, and we have to hope that somebody's going to bring the message back around. But by then, we done went through some more trauma. Our kids done went through too much trauma that could have been avoided had the information been passed down or just reciprocated and rebranded, right, for the times now. Like you were saying, Ma, you started in the 80s, right? So many laws have changed. Back in the 80s, a husband can rape his wife and not have any penalty. That has changed, right? But then you still got people that feel like they can rape their wives and have no penalty. And a lot of those wear badges and sit with robes and all of that stuff. And so the victims, they get stuck in the whirlwind. But, you know, what you say, steps toward change. How can you, it start with us. It starts with you guys tuning in on Sundays at 4. It starts with you learning. Like, I'm glad that I'm a criminal justice major. I graduated early 2000s maybe, but I loved it. And I paid attention in it, and I revisit and learn constantly. And now I know why, because of this new journey that I'm on. Had I not knew our rights, had I not knew what we qualify for, what protections my friend can have, we would, this would be a different situation, completely different. So that's the next steps for me, man. Don't rely on somebody else to tell you something. Hit a book. You know, I remember my grandfather used to say, you know, they used to say back in the day, if you want to hide something from Negroes, put it in a book. That's what my grandfather used to say. And I say it's still the same. That No Child Left Behind, they leaving our babies behind. They passing them on, but they not in them books. They not in them books. Some of them kids I work with like, Miss T, can you help me write a resume? And I'm like, a what? Can you help me write a resume? They said I need this for a job. Spell it. And she spelled resume. And I'm like, see, she was one of them kids left behind, even though they passed her ass through DC education system. She's not qualified to get no job. Now she got her own kid. You know what I'm saying? And so like the cycle continues, but you can't even really read and write. So how are you going to teach your kids sight words?
Right. I think that's a great point too, Coach Robin. If you could, as we wrap up this conversation for today, I just want you to also touch on and uplift the importance, as T just mentioned, of sharing knowledge. So we've said this now, we're 6 episodes in, and the theme that continues is the necessity of sharing our stories, passing them down, making sure that it does not just become what happens in this house stays in this house, and we don't let nobody in our business. And these, and we understand that there are some things. I gotta tell Camille all the time, stop running her mouth about stuff that happened. But there are some things that she also knows you need to be able to share. We got to be able to talk about, or else these traumas are going to suffocate us for generations to come, like they have done. So if you could just lift up again, especially from what I know you've seen coming through the system of education, the importance for us to be able to take these steps towards change, and how it starts with us to remove these inequalities and start to break these chains. What should that look like? What are some other things that we can do?
Whew. So, just like T said, from the No Child Left Behind era to now, everything is jacked up. Now, with that being said, I spend a lot of time talking to parents about what they can do without relying on the school to make sure that their children are literate. But then also, what do you need to hold the school accountable for? And so I've been in education. This is year 36. I have spent the bulk of my career at this point training teachers how to be better literacy leaders. However, our school systems stifle a whole lot of what is supposed to be. And so that's when I shifted to telling parents. I am the parents literacy coach on Facebook. I shifted to also telling parents, look, this is the stuff you need to be doing at home. Your child should not step into those doors. And it makes me mad that Pennsylvania doesn't have mandatory kindergarten, but that's a whole other show.
Right. Sorry.
So your child you should not release your child to the education system with no background. There are a billion different things you can do as a parent to make sure that your child is set up before you release them into the world. My parents did not go to college. They're high school graduates, but they didn't go to college. My mother was the queen of, you go into first grade, all summer long prior to that, you're doing first grade work. Whatever I can figure out, whatever I can, books and workbooks, whatever I can get my hands on, that's what you're doing the summer before. I don't remember it because I learned to read at home. I don't remember how, but I remember my mother working with my brother, who is 6 years behind me, and he's 3 years old. He's 2 years old, and he's writing lines and circles on paper. I remember her telling him, give him a piece of newspaper, snatch a magazine page out, circle every W you see.
Yeah.
There is so much we can do at home so that when they get to the door of that schoolhouse, whether or not the schoolhouse is doing what they're supposed to do, your child has a foundation and it didn't start there.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue. This is like a whole nother topic for another day, probably. But there is so much that can happen. We release our kids to the education system as if they're the be all and end all. Our children come from homes that don't have books. I don't care if the books belong to you. Does your child have a book? Does your child have a book that's on their level? And I know people don't want to talk about levels, but that child should be able to pick up something and read it at home. I used to go to the library, and my parents used to take us to the library. And I'm not saying that she monitored everything I read, because she didn't. But I take out 6 books. The next week she's taking me to get 6 more. I always had something to read. When I was in the 4th grade, I was reading on the 8th grade level because I read all the time. It was not an option. My father was my role model, my reading role model. We have to find reading role models for kids. They need to see you read. We need to have a family reading time. It has to be developed at home.
Wow.
Again, that's a whole other show, but
Yeah, that's great. And I want to just mention, I know we're a little bit close to leaving for the day, but my son was a ferocious reader, and I got him a library card when he was 4 years old. And he was taking books out that they thought he was taking out for me. That's the depth of how well he was reading. And he's now an author. He's written 3 books. So that's the modeling thing. If you get them early and you train them right, like Robin has just said, they will be successful, but you don't release them to the education system.
No, you don't trust a system that is clearly set based on the stories we heard of T, of L, of Coach Robin. We do not release our babies, our Coco kids, over to a system that is designed, as Coco Queen Ava DuVernay said, to do exactly what it does, which is hold us back, kill us, and ensure that we do not progress. Thankfully, though, we have created that space. And so we are here as members of this amazing coalition of Black women who are determined to not let another generation pass without our influence. So we want to thank you so much again for tuning into episode 6 of What's the Chew. We've given you a lot to chew on. Again, as we continued our conversation this week, talking about health, as we touched on even a little prelude to education, and how it is the wealth of our nation. So process on these things. Make sure you go check out the replay, share it on YouTube, Patricia Evelyn Green. Thanks also to the African American Association, Heritage Association of Virginia. We want to thank them for being able to also create this platform. On our way out, I just want to share the beginning of this quick clip. I was watching it the other day, and I think is very perfect as we close up this segment of our conversation about the social injustices and inequalities that we face as Black women. So this is Denise Francis, a TED Talk, and she is just sharing the importance of self-love for us as Black women.
If all Black women started a self-love journey, we could heal generations. Black women, did you know you can heal? Did you know you can feel? Did you know you can cry and completely surrender to the tears that are falling out of your eyes? Did you know that the trauma and pain that you've experienced isn't essentially normal? It's just been normalized. Did you know you don't always have to be strong, push through and carry on? But most importantly, did you know that you are not alone? Because I didn't. I didn't know it was okay to not be okay. I didn't know I can cry and be vulnerable, and neither of them makes me weak. I didn't know I didn't have to always have it together. I didn't always have to have my life together, know what I was doing. I didn't know I can go to church and therapy at the same time. I worried that if I did this, that the strong Black woman trophy would be taken away from me. But does it even belong to me? See, I didn't know that the strong Black woman is the healed Black woman, but I do now. Growing up, I looked up to the women in my family. They were like superheroes to me. They were beautiful, independent, and strong. When I grew up, I wanted to be just like them. I wanted to be a strong Black woman. The whole idea of the strong Black woman seemed like a character in a folktale to me. She was the unspoken rule, the requirement, the expectation. She wasn't personified just into one woman. She seemed all too familiar to me, almost as if she was family. Her mannerisms echoed the pain and trauma of her ancestors, and her self-silencing behavior became almost second nature to me. The ways of a strong Black woman was never directly taught to me. It was shown to me through the behavior and actions of my mothers, grandmothers, and family. The strong Black woman trope hurts Black women more than it helps them. It tells them that they should be strong and resilient, but doesn't allow them to engage in the behaviors needed to preserve their strength and resilience. If all Black women started a self-love journey, we could heal generations. You may be thinking,
Yeah.
That's right. We could
Heal
heal
generations.
generations
I'm here
if we
for
loved
that.
ourselves.
Yes.
Yes.
We are so grateful for this time to be able to share with you all. We are going to heal. We are as Taraji said, we gonna heal, damn it. We gonna heal. And we are gonna make sure that it stops and starts with us. The hate, the distrust, the lack, it stops with us in our generation. The support, the healing, the growth, it starts with us and continues with us. Thank y'all again for tuning into episode 6 of the Chew. We are going out to the song Black Women by the capital G. Again, make sure you stay tuned. Catch up with us every Sunday at 4 p.m. If we got a holiday, we'll let y'all know. But thanks so much again. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all.
You are what it means to be human. You're the best of us. It's shame that you're treated worse than the rest of us. You're the most educated, yet you're the most hated. You're also the boldest and the bravest. It's time for Black men to be a bit more courageous and protected from people who think that they can degrade us. Every time I see you, I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. Sweet aroma, glowing aura, and heavenless effervescence vivacious. Black women, you have a warm glow and it feels like sunlight. Black women, you make the world so bright. Light as the day or dark as night. Love your skin tone, it's just right. You are human, you are light. So beautiful, you're beautiful. So